Hello, my name is TC Pendragon and I am a full-time writer and the creator of the Blackbriar series. Whenever I am not writing, I am surely spending time with my wonderful wife Danae or with one of our cats Navi and Midna. When I was 15 years old, I was an avid reader, and I discovered that there was a book that I was seeking on the shelf and I never seemed to be able to find it. And I discovered that the reason I wasn't able to find it is because nobody had written it down yet. And the only way I was going to see it wasn't by waiting, it was by writing. And so I set out to write my own book, and I learned a great deal along the way, and then recently I published that book and it became a reality for me, and I finally found it. And the same day I made the discovery, I grabbed a stack of paper, I grabbed a pen, and I started writing. It was a very difficult process at first, but it was the foundation by which I have developed my own style and my own series. It took me 12 years of writing and research and work in order to get my story written, Martin Blackbriar and the Necronomicon. And that was in part because I was still training and figuring out how to write and develop my own style, but I was also balancing my life, I was balancing my education, and I was discovering where writing fit in my overall life and my overall craft. And I discovered that it was my calling. It wasn't just a hobby, it wasn't just a job, it was something that I was meant to do. The greatest challenge for this story was definitely the time commitment that it took to write the entire first book, because it was more than just writing an idea that came into my head. It was about discovering who I was as a person, as a writer, and developing the style that would encompass every book I would write afterwards. And a large part of that was training and education and just committing to the style that I wanted and getting everything I needed in the first book. Because this was a story that was deeply personal to me, the only way I was going to be able to make it a convincing story was if I included the protagonists as people that I knew. My dearest friends, my dearest family, and the people who I hold very close to my heart that guided me through this process all play a part in the story as it unfolds. Martin, Allie, Dorian, Lise, and Alciel, these are all characters that helped me in my journey, my personal journey as a person and also as a writer. My story would be incomplete without them, and therefore they had to have a role in the overall story. The antagonists in the story are based on people I know as well, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're the villains. I value the lessons that I learned from the protagonist-based characters as much as I do the antagonist-based characters, because pure evil has been written so many times, but that didn't do it justice whenever I had written it prior. So I had to make it personable, relatable, and real, and the valuable lessons I learned not just from my successes in my longest-running relationships, but the relationships that ended and left me with a great deal to learn as a result of making mistakes. Martin and Allie Blackbriar discover that they have magical abilities, and that is the inciting incident for the story. It's what gets the story in the present running, and it lets us realize the world of magic is very different from any work of fiction, any myth, any legend that has come before it. In this world, you typically have naturally occurring magic when you're born, or you never get it in your lifetime. And because it appears at this point in their life cycle, when the characters Martin and Allie are 15 and 14, they discover that they have a destiny that is calling to them. A dear friend comes back into the fold to protect them and train them and lead them through this first year of their time as witch and wizard so that they don't get consumed by darkness and evil doesn't catch up with them. The main conflict for Martin Blackbriar and the Necronomicon is recovering the Necronomicon itself, an incredibly powerful tome of necromancy that must be recovered, otherwise the witch and the wizard will always be in danger. My advice to any aspiring writer is to be very careful where you take advice. There's so many people out there that want to be able to work without advice, and I would recommend you have advice for some aspect of the process. Maybe you don't need advice, but there's a very strong possibility that reaching out to someone and getting their expert opinion could be incredibly valuable to your craft. Getting advice on writing from a writer, editing from an editor, publishing from a publisher, and promoting from a promoter, these are amazing places to get knowledge, and especially with your first book, taking your advice carefully from true experts is the best advice I could give anybody. I am enormously proud of this process. It not only was a great accomplishment to get the book written, but making the story has made me so much happier as a person. It's given me the ability to know that my dream can come true. I'm capable of doing this professionally, and I'm able to tell my own story. But more than that, it's not just the ability to tell my own story. I also help people every day in telling their stories now. Stories that, just like mine, were just a dream once, but now I'm representing them in the ability to get their stories told through a publisher. And I absolutely love that, because for every one story written, there's typically 20 stories that are going untold every day. It's my endeavor to get that number down by writing my own story and help everyone else tell their story. It's really brought me to a place that I never thought possible, and I cannot believe where I am standing every day. If you're interested in finding my first book, you can find it in a link just below this video, along with all my other social media outlets and all the other resources that I provide. And I hope to see a lot of you there, because it's not just one story, it's telling everyone's story that is important. And I hope that in a small way, I've inspired you to take up your story and get writing once again. So until next time, this is TC Pendragon, signing off.